Hello, everyone, and welcome to Australian Transformers Weekly. We're bringing you Transformers news from around the world and across Australia. This is episode 268. We're recording live on Friday, February 17th, 2023. And if you are listening to all of this a week later in the podcast app, you can stop it now and head over to our YouTube channel where the podcast is recorded live. You can also watch some of our live recording sessions, or you can join the Transformers Collectors Club Australia Facebook group and watch us live and comment along with everyone watching the live stream. In this week's episode, we will be checking out the Superbowl spot for Rise of the Beasts and that character. We'll think long and hard about what options that license opens up, and we've got an update on some Australian releases for the new Origin Jazz figure and other recent reveals, and we'll take a look at some of the upcoming releases for Studio Series and Legacy Evolution. All of that and more is coming up in this week's episode after this. Hello, and it's a big welcome. I left it really late to promote the live stream in the Facebook group tonight, so the intro played out to a grand total of 0 viewers, but that's okay. They'll be there on the recording. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Jason. Joining me tonight, we have Daria coming to us from just a little bit south of Sydney in Canberra. There, how are you doing, Daria?
Pretty well. Evening, everyone. How are we all doing?
I think we're doing pretty well. Your camera is actually flicking in and out of a zoomed out and a zoomed in.
Yeah, I've been trying to see if there's any setting I am playing. I'm not playing a setting, moreover, but I can't see anything that's doing it.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. In the meantime, Max appears to have muted himself. Oh, there we go.
So I'm here. I'm alive.
There we go. Max has unmuted himself. Max is coming to us from Adelaide, over in the, let's say, the middle of the country, shall we?
The nondescript area.
the stuff that's sort of around in the middle over there, like
the void in between the Blue Mountains and the desert.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you know what? I was actually realizing the other day, it's been quite a while since I've actually been to Adelaide. I think my last visit to Adelaide was for one of the toy shows a few years ago, which I think was like 5 or 6 years ago now. Long time.
It was, well and truly, I think it was like 2 years before COVID, so it's, pushing it.
I was going to say...
You'll be pleased to know that absolutely nothing has changed.
Yes, fair enough. I believe the toy fair that we went to has gone on to bigger and better venues, but yeah. I actually can't remember that much about it. I can't remember that much about the toy show, but I do remember it being a fun time. So yeah, and in terms of me visiting parts of the country, because that appears to be the part of the show that we're at, Daria, I haven't been to Canberra in a really long time, and I actually need to come and visit Canberra. So I'll come and look you up sometime in the next couple of months when I come up for a visit.
Awesomes.
Yeah, I will. Look, I will be coming to visit from Melbourne, so it will be up. So I am moving to Melbourne in a couple of weeks' time, and I have no idea what that's going to do for the recording schedule of the podcast, because I've had a slight crisis as I've realised that my computer is going to be placed in the middle of an open family room, and that's not very conducive to recording a podcast. So. Yeah, we'll see how we go. There might be a bit of a delay while I set up my desk and work area, but we'll see how we go. I think we should talk about some Transformers news. Does anyone have any notable things that have happened to them in the last couple of weeks to talk about before we do?
Not particularly.
No,
I've been busy with so much else.
Feel like I should live a more exciting life whenever you say that, but no.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. If you would live a more exciting life, the question is, would the bin that's up on the shelf behind you remain where it is?
No, I suppose it might get more use, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I'm always amused by the placement of the bin.
I should move the bin. It does stick out a little bit.
Is that bin
it's a large bin.
bin?
I don't have anywhere else to put it.
But are you like using it as a bin? Is that actually like your garbage bin?
No, I do snake catching as a part-time job, and snakes in the bin. Then you tip them out of the bin.
I can dig it.
So sometimes there's snakes in there. Not at the moment, but yeah. So if I lived a more exciting life, then the bin would get more use.
Sorry, there's sometimes snakes in the bin when it's up on your shelf.
Yeah, well, because sometimes you catch them late at night, or like when it's really cold, and then you go, okay, well, I can't safely release this thing now, so I'll just hold on to it and I'll go release it in the morning.
Your house is terrifying. I'm never going to come and visit your house. I don't know if there's going to be a snake there or not. Like, my goodness.
There's probably a 50-50 chance that there is at any given point. So
yeah, fair enough. I was about to say it's been an uneventful couple of weeks, as like not much has happened. But now I understand that there's a 50-50 chance of death in your house. So like, it's maybe a little bit exciting.
Yeah, so I suppose you sort of get used to them, where it's like, oh great, it's another brown snake. It's the thing I've caught 50 of this week, because that's all we have in Adelaide.
It's always each to our own, right?
Yeah.
Some of us are good at catching snakes. Some of us are good at running from snakes. Yeah. All right, I think it's time we talk about some Transformers instead of some snakes. There might be a snake transformer in Rise of the Beast. Who knows? There we go. We'll link it back to the movie of the week. That's the big news. We're going to move swiftly on and get to the news. Straight into news.
Hasbro news.
That will take us into some news.
What news comes from Via Yonder?
Couple of things to talk about before we get into the news. Some local releases. We've seen Legacy Evolution Wave 1 deluxes, at least, have hit Myer. They've hit EB and Zing, and they've also hit the Gamesmen. I've chatted with Hasbro a little bit about their definition of fan channels and the like, and they've sort of added Gamesmen into their definition of that. So basically, if there's something that you might see at EB and Zing, you might also find it at Gamesmen. Their prices seem to be pretty competitive and sometimes a little bit cheaper than EB and Zing. So definitely a website to keep an eye on if there's an upcoming Transformer that you're looking for. Rise of the Beasts Studio Series figures, which I don't have any of them to hand, but they also started to appear locally at both EB and Zing and Gamesmen as well. We saw Cheetor come out this week, and I think Air Razor is also. I think I saw Air Razor is in stock at Gamesmen as well. So the figures for the movie are definitely coming out. We actually found out this week in one of the. There was a round table with some of the Hasbro Transformers team speaking with some of the news websites. They said that the Studio Series figures were always due to release at this point in 2023. Originally, it was going to be about 6 months after the movie was in theaters. Now, because the movie got delayed, it lined up nicely. The Studio Series figures are coming out just a few months ahead of the movie. So, yeah, good on you. Well worked for the delay, but it means that we've got the Rise of the Beasts figures entering into the Studio Series line. We also have a dedicated Rise of the Beasts toy line that Hasbro has started to reveal over the last couple of weeks. We talked about that last episode as well. Some of the reveals from that line, and those reveals are going to continue over the next few months, I think, until the line is officially released in. I think we're expecting it in April. Also,
there's already tags for it out in Kmart's at the moment that have April listed as the expected date.
Oh, they have April listed on the tags, do they?
Yeah, well, the little date code thing just that it has something the 4th, 2023.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I thought that was quite interesting because I thought Kmart wouldn't put the tags out until the stock's due in, but if it's due in April, that's going to be another 2 months, probably a month and a half, maybe until that stock is full. So maybe we might expect to see some slim pickings at Kmart over the next month and a half. I thought that was going to take. I thought they would put the tags out when they expected it within like a week or so.
Who knows?
We might get them early.
Yeah, I mean, we've just had Studio Series Cheetor hit out of nowhere, right? And the Rise of Beast mainline is slowly drip feeding throughout Asia, so it wouldn't be unreasonable to assume that we might see a few of them just start to make their way out earlier, because that is, sort of par for the course with releases of a new line.
Yeah, I think so. We've seen the main line appear in Sogo store in Taiwan. Two of the Voyagers I think have appeared, but most of the line seems to have been held back, or at least they're holding off releasing most of it. I think it is due in April or so. So we'll see how we go. I've also seen a few mentions of some figures that are going to come out. Some figures that are going to come out a little bit after the mainline figures in April. I think there's going to be another batch of figures in July or so. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. While we are talking about local releases and who's local releases and where to get things, I do want to draw people's attention to the Instant Win promotion that is currently running at Big W. You can buy a Transformer from Big W, and you can head over to a website that's beautifully named instantwinwithtransformers.com.au. That domain is totally timeless and will be on the internet forever, I can tell. Instantwinwithtransformers.com.au. You can upload your Big W receipt, and it'll tell you if you're a winner. You could win a Roar and Snore overnight experience at the Taronga Zoo Transformers Beasts base camp, which I think might be an up and coming attraction that might not be quite ready yet, but I think it's coming in March or in April. And there's also a number of other sort of lesser prizes as well. The main prizes are worth about $2,000 for the overnight experience, so it's a decent prize. But you could also win like a discounted ticket or free entry for the day and things like that. If you're living around Sydney, good idea to maybe go and buy your Transformers from Big W. If you're not living in Sydney, well, maybe it'll be an incentive to come visit for the day. We'll see how we go. I'm going to kick the screen share back out now and bring us back up. Here. We'll talk a little bit about overseas releases before we get into the rest of the news. Legacy Evolution is coming out very quickly overseas. We've seen deluxes and leaders. So deluxes, sorry, not did I say deluxes? Maybe I meant Voyagers actually. Voyagers, so Metalhawk, and leaders as in Skyquake. I think Skyquake, and I'm not sure who Metalhawk's wavemate was now. But the Wave 2 Voyagers and Twincast, yes, that's right. Thank you. The Voyagers and the leaders have hit the shelves in Canada already. We're on to Wave 2 of Legacy Evolution, and it's only February. I don't know if I've ever seen a Transformers line released this quickly, but we also do know it's going to be a really jam-packed year when it comes to Transformers releases. We'll see later on that Legacy Evolution Wave 3 is probably not due until mid-year, so this might be it for a while for Evolution, but I do think it was an early release. I think it was due around March or April, but they found their way onto shelves in Canada, and so they got a fast follow in Asia with the figures being released there as well. So we are seeing people pop up with the Transformers Prime Universe Skyquake, the Wave 2 leader class, which was only revealed a couple of weeks ago on the Hasbro live stream. So we're seeing Skyquake pop up in a few in-hand images now. So good on them for getting that out and about to us nice and quickly. I think that's about it. Since we're talking about releases, any of those releases something that you guys are looking forward to picking up locally, or anything you want to add onto your collection from there?
Just wait till some stuff hits on sale locally. I think see what happens. I think Skyquake's up there, as we discussed last episode, but otherwise just see what happens.
And I figure if we're getting Skyquake, we're very likely getting his brother, if that's not actually been listed yet. So I'm holding out for that for Dreadwing.
Dreadwing hasn't been listed yet.
It's been rumored. Yeah, I think they did find the name in listings, but I think originally people thought they might both come in the same wave, but releasing one and a repaint in the same wave is probably a bit much. So I think maybe later in the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a slightly odd order to list them because Skyquake was one and done, where his brother Redwing stuck around for like a good season or so, but yeah, maybe they do this on purpose. So people who are desperate for that mold will go and get Skyquake first to tide them over until the better known character comes along.
Well, I think the thing with Skyquake too is that, while he is, very much coloured and overall all designed after the Prime version, just the shapes and general aesthetic feel very familiar to the G2 Skyquake. So I feel like he has that as a bit of brand recognition as well, as opposed to just the Prime character.
Yeah, in a way he does double duty.
Yeah, and I think most people are like more attached to a Prime character than the G2 version, because the G2 version was never really a character. But at least for me personally, that's where the appeal is having it, is that double duty and the meeting of those two wildly different aesthetics. So I think that may be where a lot of the appeal for this guy comes from, versus Dreadwing, who is, obviously it's G1 Dreadwing, but unless they I guess unless they do a similar thing there and go, here he is merged with a G1 version, then it doesn't have that same double duty.
I guess we'll find out when the repaint comes along later on. I don't think he's necessarily been spotted in upcoming wave breakdowns either. So maybe this year, maybe next year, but was definitely something that was rumored and I think listed for a while. Max, you mentioned that you were going to wait until some figures come around and go on sale. I did want to mention actually that the Legacy Evolution Deluxes that we mentioned earlier at Myer, we're very fortunate. Last weekend, Myer had a nice little 20% offer on a lot of action figures. So Myer's price for deluxes has gone up to $39.99. I say looking at the box that's on my desk, $39.99. Like everything, prices have gone up this year. But with 20% off, that brought that down to I think $32. So sort of back to the prices of yesteryear. Just goes to show, if you are looking for something, try to price match, shop around before you walk to the checkout in that store. Just open up Google the product and see if someone's got it cheaper and see if you can get them to price match it. If you don't ask, you don't get. Now, who wants to go through some news, shall we?
Yeah, actually got a decent amount, a few reasonably significant things.
We do. The resounding positive vibe for going through some news. Let's start off with the big news of the week, which is the Transformers Rise of the Beasts Superbowl teaser. If you were expecting a brand new 2.5 to 3 minute Rise of the Beasts trailer to hit during Super Bowl, you're going to be disappointed, because I think I feel like it was about 10 to 15 seconds. Maybe it was a little bit. It might have been a little bit longer. I might just be sort of underplaying it, but
it was about slightly more than half of it was new footage, but a lot of it was new footage of just the same scene from a different angle.
Yeah. So it was very focused on Mirage. It seems that the Super Bowl spot was really sponsored by, or intending to really throw the spotlight onto Porsche.
The trailer didn't go up on Hasbro socials for a good hour or so. So it was only on Porsche's social media, then Hasbro put it up.
Yeah, and this is significant. We saw that Porsche was advertising the fact that there was going to be a trailer the day before, which set tongues a wagon. It's significant because Porsche has never really been very open to licensing their cars for Transformers. Like obviously we had Jazz in the 80s when licensing restrictions was slightly a little bit less shall we say enforced and enforceable, so they kind of got away with it. But every Jazz figure since then has not had a recognizable Porsche alt mode, or it's been sort of a significant enough change that it's not really a licensable product. This is significant because not only was Porsche on board with promoting it, but obviously Mirage is a 911, 911, however you want to say it, in the movie. We've seen that for months now from looking at the trailer. We also know that there is an officially licensed 911 vehicle mode as well, and officially licensed 911 vehicle mode for the toy coming in Studio Series. We'll look at that shortly, but not only that, they also substituted the Autobot logo in the Transformers briefly for a Porsche logo in the at the end of the trailer. So just in case you really didn't know if they had the license, they do.
They have the license and they're in charge now. This is Porsche's franchise.
Yeah, Porsche now owns Transformers.
We're doing the marketing. You guys step back.
If Porsche, this will sound a bit harsh. If Porsche does the marketing, it might be interesting to see some changes on that. But I actually do think Hasbro's been doing a decent job of the marketing for a while now. To the actual specifics of the trailer, as you said, there was a lot of extra footage in there. We're not going to play it because we'll get kicked off of YouTube and sued into oblivion if we do. But it's very easy to find on YouTube and just search for Rise of the Beasts Superbowl. The focus being sort of brought to us by Porsche. The focus is the Porsche character, which is Mirage. We get to hear Pete Davidson speak as Mirage for the first time. I believe he says the line twice. He says, "I'm Mirage," and then says, "Remember, I'm Mirage," or something like that. But yeah, I think in general, people seem quite accepting of his Mirage voice. In fact, what did you guys think?
I thought it was quite good. Like, it was like Mirage often. Maybe this does sound sacrilegious, but he's one of those G1 characters that's never really had a defined character. I don't feel like there aren't really many iconic Mirage moments. I can't think of this is who Mirage is. He's just sort of is a dude who's occasionally depicted as grumpy or occasionally depicted as treacherous, but generally he's just like his character aesthetic is like his main character trait is sometimes he's a bit of a dickhead. And that's about it.
Yeah,
it's like that's really all they've ever given him. So, if this is, if this is a bit of a departure from whatever Mirage may have been in the past, I don't mind in the slightest because it's giving him an actual character and personality.
Yeah, his best remembered moment is something someone else was doing, which was when Cliffjumper was calling him traitor when he in fact was not. So his defining feature is someone else thinks something about him that's not true. So, and people like to remember that Turbo Foxes thing from his tech spec. But yeah, that's never been seen anywhere ever. So yeah, I know that the fandom is alive with, his personality reminds me of Jazz, but yeah, okay, but he's got a personality now, and Jazz never entirely had the monopoly on being the cool guy. It's just that he's the one most people remember, and he was a Porsche, but for reasons that we could probably only speculate on at the moment, well, not speculate too hard, the Porsche is not called Jazz, and now that I think about it, it's probably because another company has a car called a Jazz.
Oh yeah, that could be it. We don't think they're really trying to avoid being seen as a reboot of the movies anymore. So I don't think it's really necessary to avoid using Jazz. But they've made the decision that this is Mirage, so fair enough.
Yeah, like maybe they're just sort of going, well, we want to do a different character, and a Porsche 911 is a cool looking car. It doesn't have to be much to it beyond that. Like, it does look a bit like Jazz, but even the color scheme isn't one-to-one Jazz. The robot mode design certainly isn't Jazz. It's I wouldn't call this. I joked earlier in the week in the group that this is the discourse about this guy being similar to Jazz is similar to the Starscream and Blitzwing discourse, but there is a much wider gap between Mirage and Jazz than Starscream and Blitzwing.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
the more I
think
think
so.
about it, I'm clinging to that Volkswagen, who own Porsche, don't want a movie-length thing of someone pointing at their car and saying the name of one of Honda's cars.
I hadn't actually thought about that as a potential reason of this, but that's probably quite a good one. Yeah.
That
auto
was one of
manufacturers
the
are weird.
reasons. That was one of the reasons that 20 odd years ago, the alternators Meister was not called Jazz.
Oh, I was not actually aware of that. That is also handy to know. Yeah.
I mean, they had the same. They had the same. Already had that problem of trademarking Jazz, but they had no trouble putting all the other figures on the shelf as the Autobot Jazz. But since these ones were struck with deals from real car companies, Mazda apparently said, "Well, you can't have a Mazda Jazz because Honda make Jazzes, so stop that."
Yeah, that's I'd say that's very likely a factor. Let's talk a little bit about the design of the robot mode. We've got him. We've sort of got his most iconic, or maybe the best look at him from the trailer on here. It's very detailed. The robot mode has lots of pieces hanging off him, sticking out everywhere, sort of forming into a very sort of humanoid shape. What do you guys make of all of the kibble and the bits sticking out and nuts and bolts hanging around?
It's definitely not Michael Bay monster made of knives, but it is certainly more Bay adjacent than the Bumblebee designs.
You're saying it's Bay adjacent?
Sure, we could say that. But I don't entirely mind it because it sort of is. I still don't think it looks like the like a Bayformer per se. It sort of just is its own aesthetic more or less. It's carving out its own little thing.
Yeah. I actually think it does look pretty consistent with the Bumblebee design. Like we could see parts of Bumblebee's car in various in various parts of him in his robot mode in the 2017 Bumblebee movie, and so like I feel like this carries on with that, but also like there are definitely things on here where I'm looking at, I'm like, I don't know where the fuck that part fits into a 911, but
what
sure.
Gets it. I think the thing here is it's like, okay, here's here's a robot with a bunch of car parts on it, but it's not immediately clear where the car parts have moved.
I think that was a lot more obvious with Bumblebee. Yeah,
so it's like, okay, his chest looks to be, the front the front bumper of the car inverted, switched around and upside down, and then the thighs are the back bumper of the car, I think. So it's like it's not majorly egregious because you never, these things do just reflect that, but it is kind of, it doesn't look like it's organically stood up as a car turning into a robot. Does that make sense? It just kind of looks like here's a car and here's a robot, and here's where we've taken a bunch of bits off that car and pasted them onto the robot, and it's not immediately obvious how that transforms.
It does almost look like it's a humanoid with car pieces stuck to them, right?
Yeah, I'm sort of levying complaints here, but I don't think it's bad in the slightest. Actually, I think it's a really cool design. It's
I think it does look good. I just don't quite know how. I don't quite know how it's meant to represent sort of a 911. Who knows? Maybe at this point in the movie, maybe he doesn't have a 911 alt mode. Who knows? Whatever. But like I'm looking at the right arm where there's like a coil or something that's got just a sort of a hint of blue sticking out, and there's bits of sort of, there's a cavity in sort of around his bicep, and I'm like, oh man, I don't even know what the bit hanging off his shoulder where that becomes a part of his car. Like I don't know where any of this stuff is.
Yeah, maybe like. Sorry.
It's much, at least from this one angle we have, it is much more a suit of car parts than a car who's become a robot. Overall, it's a bit like they're meeting partway, maybe not exactly halfway, but partway between the Bumblebee aesthetic and the more greebly, although as you say, not made of knives, of the Bay films aesthetic. I mean, I do know, obviously in these movies, unlike some of the other renditions of Transformers, they have a robot mode and a vehicle mode as different models and just kind of flap them around to transform them. So they're often not, they don't have to be as concerned as the toy manufacturers that it all lines up nicely. But I'm looking at, it looks like that could be like one of his wing mirrors sticking out of his arm, maybe. And then there's the engine's rotor on where his navel would be if robots had navels, and possibly a hubcap on his hip. So yeah, I can't see how this, for all I know, this is mid-scan and all those parts start to make sense.
Yeah,
but
it's possible.
I don't see this as a coherent folding into a car as is. And I can't remember, I only barely saw the toy and can't remember anything of that preview picture. But I would not be surprised if to meet some of the look, they do a bit of faux kibbling.
Maybe. Rob in the chat says it will be interesting to see how all this translates to a toy figure, and we're gonna look at that in a minute, because Hasbro did follow this up by announcing it the next day. Yes, spoilers. The one thing I want to point out, you mentioned the thing sticking off the arm. To me, this totally looks like a rear view mirror, not a side mirror. I think that's the rear view mirror from the driver's view. And that might even be part of the dashboard hanging out there.
Which is right next to a piston, apparently, as we all know how cars have them.
Yeah, I mean, it's all there. It's all part of it. The one thing I do want to point out, however, is that you sort of said, we've said a few times the Bumblebee aesthetic, and I think we tend to think about Bumblebee when we think about the Bumblebee aesthetic, but it's also worth remembering that Shatter and Dropkick had very different designs and were a lot more greebly and a lot more sort of like techno-organic than Bumblebee was in the Bumblebee movie. And this to me seems more in line with what we sort of expected out of a Transformer in terms of Shatter and Dropkick than maybe Bumblebee.
Yeah, I suppose
he has an actual face, which is a rarity amongst Bay Transformers. Like a lot of Bay Transformers, the face, insofar as the part of their head where their eyes are kept, that's on the front, is less a face as like looking like a bunch of tiles. Whereas
that's true. I kind of dislike the tile look as well. Like to me, it just it looks like someone's just turned down the polygon count when you get that sort of a design. It is worth noting also that Mirage's head design was updated. They did see a bunch of complaints from people who saw the head in some of the early shots and just went, it doesn't really look like Mirage. So they've updated his head to look a little bit more like the G1 figure, which I think they've done it without making him look like a Sphinx. But I think they've added the crest on there. They've sort of tweaked the colors a little bit, so it's sort of blue and gray. Maybe it does go to sort of the face design as well. Yeah.
Yeah, Cliffjumper's not going to get angry with him because of what happened in the last movie, so that's not going to happen.
Cliffjumper. I don't know.
That's why he's got a better disposition.
Cliffjumper could go for an each way split, to be quite honest. It's better than the. We've got two Transformers that we can make this joke about now. Like one is Jazz from the 07 movie. No, I want two. Or it's just sorry, Cliffjumper had to split. What did one Adam say to the other? So yeah, look, anyway, Mirage and the Porsche license are the big news out of the Superbowl trailer this week. As we mentioned, Hasbro did follow it up with a very fast reveal of the Studio Series version of Mirage in toy form. Let's take a look at that now. It doesn't really look very much like his on-screen appearance, does it? But at the same time, kind of like the toy.
It's a good looking deluxe. It's just like it's jazz.
Well, you know who that robot mode reminds me of a lot, which granted I could be biased at the moment, but that robot mode would not be hard to turn into Strong Arm. The 2015 one.
Yeah. Well, so we talked about this before the show started. You're currently doing an RAD 2015 rewatch, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that could be why Strong Arm's on my mind, but the vehicle mode's entirely different, but he's got that boxy split chest thing. He's got the arms with the back panels. I mean, on her it's sirens, on here it's almost certainly not. And he's got that strong, but got the small head with some shoulder business going on. So if you're a dedicated customizer and thought, hey, what if Strong Arm were a Porsche, you would not have a lot of trouble adapting this.
Yeah, that's true. To sort of let's flip back a little bit and back and forth. Like, you can sort of see where they've brought across some of the chest design, and we talked about this a little bit in some of our weekly chats in TCCA, and we sort of landed on this. This guy looks a little bit like a Binaltech figure. Like the old Binaltechs and the alternators, and I don't know whether it's the realistic alt mode that really gives off that vibe, or if it's sort of the more bits of the car hanging off different parts of his design as well.
It's the broad, how wide he is as well. He's just like he's not. It's what's the way to describe it? It's not like it doesn't look like a bulkhead or even a road bus or something where it looks like he's designed to look wide. It looks like a lankier design that's been stretched out or compressed a bit. Does that make sense? That's to me that makes it look a bit more Binaltech-y.
Yeah, I think that's
the
true.
Figure looks like a rest. Sorry.
I think the head design also, the way the head sort of sits into the chest, I think the head design also sort of sells the Binaltech aspect. He looks sort of like the early Subaru, and which was a smokescreen and blue streak and the like, I think. And I think this might be behind the head, but this part behind that seems to have sort of caught part of the light source, because this is just a render. I think that also adds a bit to the aesthetic as well.
Yeah, the figure looks like a wrestler. The movie character looks like a dancer.
Yeah. That's not a bad comparison. I do also want to draw attention to the fact that in demonstrating the alt mode here, like Hasbro's just stuck a Porsche there. Like there's nothing here that looks like it's got panel lines or anything where things transform and parts meet up. Like I feel like they've just stuck a CG model of a Porsche there and just gone, this is what it's going to look like no matter what. Like this is what our license says.
Yeah, maybe Porsche is still a bit touchy. So if they put up a bad looking Porsche, they might go, hold on a second.
Maybe. And then just in case you are unsure about where the license comes from, it's printed on the door, the car door there as well. Look, I feel like we're kind of doing a bit of a disservice and making a bit of fun of it. But like my first reaction when seeing this figure was like, I think it actually looks pretty nice. Like I wouldn't mind having that guy in my collection. The more I look at it, the more I'm just like, that really doesn't look like him at all. But you can see sort of where some of the parts and the inspiration have come from. We did talk about we did talk about how there's various components that make up the thighs at the top of the thighs there, and you can definitely see that there. The colors are way off. Like the colors are way off. Like there's definite blue there, and there's stoplight. Like the rear stoplights and indicators and stuff are there. Obviously, they're present in the CG model, and they're just flat on the Studio Series one. Like it looks like this sort of needs to go back for another round of paint accessorizing or something,
Yeah, they did actually some. So the colors in this trailer are slightly different to the colors in the first trailer. So it may just be, this is based off an early design. So maybe it could change.
You're right. It probably is based off an earlier design. The head colors are also a little bit off, but the movie was delayed by a year. Like surely they've got time to update this.
Yeah, I guess.
Anyway,
yeah. The other thing is, that I want to just quickly point out on this guy is Mirage has another one of these arm tube guns. Whereas it seemed like every single character in this movie has a tube on their arm.
Oh, you're right.
For a
I
gun.
thought. Actually, no. You can see here. It is actually a hand holding a gun.
Yeah, but it's like that's what they've done a few times though.
But it fits over the hand. Yeah.
So to represent something that transforms out of the hand in the movie. I don't like it. Basically,
we've talked about this before. I
Yeah.
recall you not liking the sort of the gun that transforms out of them, because you prefer them to actually have artillery that they carry, right?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it per se, but it's when every single character has the same, like specifically a tube coming out of the arm, right? Like there's plenty of characters have always had inbuilt weaponry. Like I don't care about them having to necessarily hold guns. Right, like in the previous movie, we had Prime held a gun, whereas B had a arm tube thing. Right, it's different aesthetics, but here there's just something about every single character having this same tube on the arm. It just looks, I don't know. It just
you know what I'm going for.
It's just
there
a
you
bit
go.
odd.
It's Optimus with his arm tube gun.
They've all got one, and it's like. I don't know. There's something about it. Right? I can't put my finger on why it annoys me, but it just really just irks me. I think it's the fact that weaponry and just the ornaments of the Transformer are often one of the most iconic parts of a design, right? Whether or not that's handheld or inbuilt. Like Seekers have null rays, Megatron has a fusion cannon, Prime has the ion blaster, and then if every single character all of a sudden has a transformer is just born with the ability to transform their arm into a tube gun, it kind of, I don't know.
I just like the way that you say tube gun to rhyme with scum.
I just don't know. Like it's removing a bit of the aesthetic uniqueness of each character. And it's like, it's a minor thing, but because it's a minor thing, it feels like it's a major thing, because it's like, well, why make this aesthetic choice? Anyway, you get what I mean? It's like a minor thing that by virtue of being a minor thing becomes a major thing, because someone's taken the time to make this minor and weirdly specific choice that doesn't actually add anything.
Yeah. While we're on this shot, I do want to point out also, there's a lot of internal engine parts and sort of internal metal folding around that's going on with Prime's chest there as well, which also does harken back to the Prime design from the Bumblebee movie as well. So I'm going to say that this Mirage design that we've seen is not really that far removed from the Bumblebee aesthetic. It's just that Bumblebee maybe didn't carry that much of his own movie's aesthetic into his design.
Well, I think also because so many of us think of those designs from the first 5 minutes or so, when everyone's on Cybertron and looking very clean and a lot like their animated counterparts.
It's true, and I wonder if that sort of that clean sort of just stepped out of the shop look is actually down to the amount of time that they had to do that CG. Like we've seen, you can see here, there's a lot of wear and tear on Optimus, and this is also something that is different to the previous trailer to now. Is they've spent a lot more time grading and putting textures on and changing some of the brightness and the depth of field as well. I do think that there's we haven't seen the final look for a lot of these guys yet. So I guess we'll see how it goes. Shall we move on? We've buried the Super Bowl trailer and the deluxe class Mirage. We'll see how those end up. Let's talk a little bit about buzzworthy Bumblebee Origin Jazz. We'll go straight away from the current movie design right back to the very first episode of the cartoon. We saw this figure revealed a couple of weeks ago. I think we discussed this in the last episode. I'm pretty sure we did. Oh, maybe we. Anyway, it's
I feel like we did.
I feel like we did. Because it was revealed on the live stream, but then there was a roundtable discussion that happened after a few days later. But yes, this guy was revealed a couple of weeks ago, and Mark Myer, Hasbro's designer, has taken to his Instagram account and shown some new photographs of it, and showing off some of the features of the figure. So as you can see, he's got a grappling hook accessory. The grappling hook is separate to the blast effect there as well, so you can sort of attach them in different ways and in different places. So it comes with a couple of weapons, which we also sort of saw. The Origin Bumblebee figure that this is sort of the sequel to came with the energon rods and a weapon as well. So just sort of cramming in a bit of extra stuff for his price point. Although Origin Bumblebee was quite small, Origin Jazz is a lot larger. A lot more like a sort of a traditional deluxe class figure, I think. It is worth pointing out that like the first episode of the cartoon, the Origin figure sort of carries his Earth robot design, because they didn't really design Cybertronian robot modes for them. So he sort of inexplicably has the Earth mode chest design, and it's a fake chest because in his vehicle mode he shows absolutely no signs of it. There we go. And of course, we've seen, a lot of us would have seen the gag making this out to be a dustbuster as well in the last week or so as well. I'm still stoked that this figure exists. I'm really happy about it. It looks like you can even open up the cockpit in that. How cool is that? Don't know if that Target Master will fit in there though, but still plenty of
functionality exists.
Plenty of options there to open that up, and of course there's a couple of Soundwave lampposts. Very well done. It looks like he might come with two blast effects for the sort of the jet propulsion at the back. That's quite good. Are you guys after the Origin Jazz figure?
Yes, unquestionably yes.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Daria?
Yeah, I think so. It might be time to upgrade my Jazz. My current Jazz is the War for Cybertron game Jazz.
Yeah.
But this guy, even putting aside the Origin Cybertron mode gimmick, is a very nice rendition of the character. You can, in this shot here, you can hardly see any quote unquote tricks that this is not turning into what you expect.
That's true. A lot of the
closest is you can see the folded up panels on his left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is probably one of the most desired figures that we've seen revealed this year. There's like the internet lit up with people heaping praise upon it, looking forward to it, and also a lot of pessimism as to whether or not we'd actually see him in Australia, because we very famously did not get the Origin Bumblebee figure here. You've been able to get it from various sources. It did pop up on Amazon for a little while at about I think about $45 or $50 delivered. So the big news is you are going to be able to get Origin Jazz in Australia. He's going to be coming out to what Hasbro calls fan channels. So that's very likely to be EB Games, Gamesmen, Zing, Pop Culture, places like that. And you should be able to get him from April. So we're not too far away from the release of the figure. I guess my guess is that he'll probably be about $40 to $45 to $50, because I think going on the prices that we ended up having to pay for the original Origin Bumblebee figure, he was a high price for a small figure. This is a larger figure, possibly a little bit less accessories, but maybe he might be priced a little bit more than a deluxe, but we'll see.
The Buzzworthy line is so delightfully random.
It is, isn't it? So I think
it feels like it's replacing Gen Selects almost.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
like
maybe.
At least adjacent to Gen Selects, and that it's just sort of throwing shit at a wall and seeing what sticks.
I feel like I'm not sure that this was actually the first in the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line, but it might have been. It was a good couple of years ago now. The Origin Bumblebee one, but we've since seen the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line. It's not even a line; it's just sort of a brand. So there's legacy figures in it. There's Studio Series figures in it. There's also completely out of left field figures that don't even fit other things. Like they had the little core class Bumblebee that came with the Spike Witwicky figure. That thing's just, I think they're still sitting in Kmart shelves. I saw them knocked down to $9 a few months ago, but there was still a full shelf of them. But those things are around. A lot of the more desirable repaints, the narrative is that we don't get them here, but we also did get the cup and the cup, and what was the other?
Cliff Jumper?
Cliff Jumper, yes, we did get them. You can find them in Target stores. Still, they're starting to get a little bit scarce, but they did eventually come out here. There's a number of repaints. They've just released Nest Ratchet in the Studio Series line, and a repaint of the Studio Series 44 Dark of the Moon Optimus Prime in the Buzzworthy line as well. It's as you said, Daria. It's seemingly random. It doesn't seem like there's necessarily any particular rules about what goes into the line, or what's on limits or off limits to them as well. It just yeah. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say that it sort of replaces Gen Selects, but it is kind of a bit of a place where they do some interesting repaints, and maybe make them a little bit more exclusive or harder to get than Gen Selects, because Gen Selects are pretty easy to get. I mean, obviously, none of us really like it when figures are hard to get. So, there's sort of a good and a bad of that. But at least in this case, as I said, we are going to see this released in Australian shelves.
Yeah, hopefully we just have to hope that it's not too hard to get, because he does. I'm seeing more hype surrounding this guy than just about any of the other Buzzworthy releases so far. The only thing that maybe compares was I've seen a lot of people get really hyped for that primary issue because of how hard that mold was to find initially.
Yes,
but otherwise I can't think of anything that sort of matches the online buzz, pardon the pun, behind this guy. So you just have to hope there's supply to match it.
I think Cliff Jumper proved quite desirable when he first came out, but now that's been all over store shelves here for the last 6 months. So I think the shine has sort of gone off Cliff Jumper, and if you want a Cliff Jumper, you've probably already got one.
Yeah, sounds about right.
All right, let's move on from Origin Jazz. We did get a little bit more info from Hasbro during the week. So Origin Jazz is coming from April 2023. The Rise of the Beasts line, we did talk about this last week. That is going to come out globally in April, and Hasbro does expect to have the full range on Australian shelves. Legacy Evolution Wave 2, you're probably going to want to go to specialty stores to get that, because they said that there's a lot of stock sitting on store shelves at the moment. So retailers will probably want to move that stock before they get new stuff in. However, if you order from places like eBay and Zing, you'll find that they'll get figures through as they're meant to come out. And Studio Series, yes, same again. That is, of course, a bit of a bittersweet result for Australian shoppers, because it means that you're probably going to end up paying maybe $5 more for a figure just to get it from those stores. As we've seen, eBay's price for a deluxe tends to have crept up to about $45 these days. JB Hi-Fi sort of hovers between $40 and $45 depending on the line. As I mentioned earlier, Gamesmen might be one of the best places to get these figures. They seem to have up-to-date releases, and they seem to be about $40 for a deluxe. So I think we just need to accept the fact that prices have gone up, but see if you can find a good place to shop around.
Yeah, it stings, but it is. I can also sort of rationalize it because the figures are better now as well. It's just you sort of have to buy less of them. That's
true. Let's move on. We are coming up to about an hour, so we might make this one of some of our last things. Might go through these a little bit quickly. The leak machine has been in overdrive lately, saying that, and now we're hearing that 2024 Studio Series listings have been found in, I think, Walmart and Target systems over in the US. So we're hearing that Studio Series is going to expand into War for Cybertron, which is not a rehash of the War for Cybertron trilogy that we've just had in the Generations line, but the High Moon Studios game from I think it's about 2014, 2015 or so. Studio Series' remit is sort of like, to follow the accuracy of sort of the big screen designs, which I think the War for Cybertron and I'm going to say Fall of Cybertron designs were also quite beloved by fans. At the time, maybe we didn't get the best toys representing those designs. So how do you feel about them coming back and having another stab at them?
Oh, it's just fantastic. Like, obviously we haven't seen any of these yet, but yeah, it's if this I was skeptical of the initial leaks just because it sort of seemed I guess it always seemed like wish fulfillment. People saw the WFC in the titles and assumed, we're getting War for Cybertron figures, but now there's enough come out of them that have come out through leaks so we can say, yeah, like this is happening and I'm all for it. It's it's one of those areas like animated that sort of, maybe not quite to the same extent, but that has sort of remained untouched for quite a while. Like big iconic parts of a franchise that brought in a lot of people that just that they just haven't gone back to. So yeah, to have these designs coming back is phenomenal. I'm really keen for that. And I also most of them double as IDW designs as well, because half of the IDW comics they were using the War for Cybertron designs.
Yeah, some of the designs around that time did sort of creep into the comics, didn't they?
Yeah, so it's like they can pull double duty.
Yeah, it's very true. Look, I didn't mind the Seeker design in War for Cybertron. I never played the games because I'm a Nintendo guy. The games didn't come out on Nintendo platforms, but I didn't mind the design of the Seekers. I'm a Seekers guy, but I also didn't keep them. I had them at one point, and I just sort of went, yeah, it's nice, but they sort of it's done. The game's done. The game's over. They no longer the property no longer exists. The company no longer exists. So like I felt like the design's probably not going to sort of evolve or go anywhere. Like there wasn't going to be another game in the line or anything. So got rid of the Seekers. But I would be tempted to revisit them in Studio Series, sort of a more modern design, better articulation, that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm very very interested.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't think I own a single War for Cybertron or Fall of Cybertron figure. Like even from I owned Planet X stuff and since sold it. But the only representations of these figures I've got are those shape-shifting Legends class Ironhide and Starscream, which are like a one and done thing. Because I don't know, it's the sort of thing where I just don't feel like the War for Cybertron line ever had its moment, like where you go, oh shit, these are incredible. Aside from that first round of deluxes in War for Cybertron, I don't feel like it's ever had that moment of the figures just hitting.
It's actually quite interesting you say that, because those figures were hitting just as I was sort of getting back into Transformers at that time, and so I don't really have that perspective on how big or popular they were or weren't at the time, because it was like, well, I walked into these stores and I saw the video game figures, but they were also alongside the Thrilling 30 figures, and so I didn't necessarily understand the difference in the aesthetic or the designs, and I didn't see it. But like years later, of course, with a lot more experience in the product line, it's more obvious what was going on with the designs. But I didn't really sort of like connect them as different figures from the games or from different continuities and the like.
Yeah, I was just counting in my head, and I own 2 from the game series of figures. I've got Jazz, as aforementioned, and Grimlock, unsurprisingly. I think that's the only 2 I have. Jazz is actually pretty cool on that particular figure because he's got just the right proportions that he can hold the blaster / twin cast that comes with Trax / Road Rage's masterpiece next to his head, like it was an actual ghetto blaster.
Yeah, there's a couple of comments in the chat. Mark says that he don't think Fall of Cybertron did sneak into IDW comics. I actually do think that the Starscream design kind of did. I'm pretty sure that
definitely did.
Starscream, all the Seekers stuck around. But later in IDW, the Seekers started to all have, like, they would give each Seeker a slightly different design, and it was just like, well, they've all chopped and changed their bodies enough. So it was this, but for a time they were all using the FOC designs. Shockwave retained it the whole way through. I think Jetfire, the aerial bots, Ironhide retained it most of the way through. Bumblebee, a lot of the Autobot cars.
Yeah, I guess Shockwave kind of has that sort of iconic look, and the sort of like the large sort of front chest and stuff. I don't know. I don't know enough about the Fall of Cybertron and the War for Cybertron designs to really say, I think, which ones informed which. I do think out of like Shockwave designs, I tend to look at everything Shockwavey these days and just go, it looks like Transformers Prime Shockwave, but that might just be down to my own personal experience as well. And Mark says the Armada Starscream soon replaced the Fall of Cybertron. Look, yeah, I think you're probably right there as well.
I think that they all chopped and changed a fair bit, but like for a time that there was sort of like this rotating cast of whoever had these designs. It was largely during Barber's initial run of Robots in Disguise, sort of immediately post Dark Cybertron. Post Chaos, pre Dark Cybertron. When pretty much a majority of the cast, if they had a FOC design, was using that.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then they diversified out from there.
And Starscream's frequent body upgrades are actually a story point that he kept doing it just to keep himself vain and relevant.
There is a question looking at the designs on the screen there. Where is it? Rob says, how is there a movie 6 Megatron? Well, we'll talk about this a little bit. So the actual leak list down here is below. So we're looking at movie 5. We're looking at Mohawk. That's it from movie 5. Fair enough. Let it be consigned to memory. There's an interesting thing here. So we've got multiple listings here for movie 6, right? So there's a Voyager Shockwave, which I think we all sort of expected once they did the core class version. There's also a Leader Megatron, which is interesting because Megatron wasn't in the movie as Rob pointed. Well, actually, Rob doesn't actually specifically say Megatron's not in the movie. He does say there was only 5 live action movies before the Bumblebee movie. To the studio series design, to the studio series, you can see there's multiple code names in here. There's 86, Movie 6, TF7, things like that. As we've seen the 86 figures come into the studio series line, we've seen multiple ways of them being referenced, and in some cases I've actually seen the 86 movie referenced as the 7th movie, so movie 7 or TF7. But also it seems likely there's a note here that says the movie 6 entries may in fact be mislabeled, and there might actually be references to the 86 movie. So we've seen the 86 movie come out as movie 7, might also be movie 6 for 86 or some other kind of mistake here as well. So
yeah, because notably there's a movie 6 Rumble and a movie 6 Sunstreaker listed here, which obviously neither of them were in the Bumblebee movie.
That's right. There's also Starscream, who I guess was glimpsed briefly on Cybertron, but there has been a Starscream Seeker in the Voyager scale as well. So I would say just because it says a movie number on the product code, it's not necessarily the actual movie number, because they do get these things wrong. The one thing that I think we can probably be fairly certain of is the Leader 86 swoop, following up from the rest of the Dinobots. It'll be the final Dinobot, the fifth Leader Dinobot, which it's taken a while to get that set out. I think it will have been about 3 years by the time it comes out at the end of it. They've sort of knocked them back to doing I think they've only done one in the last year. We've got Swoop. Swoop will be out possibly later this year, or maybe next year. Actually, this is it's the 2024 line, so it'll be 4 years by the time that happens. We do have a look at Snarl coming up in a minute's time or so as well. So I just think it's interesting to see what we've got coming later in the year or in 2024. We are also seeing War for Cybertron Sideswipe there as well. So it could be a nice new Sideswipe figure there as well. I think the War for Cybertron designs sort of give them a chance to sort of do a nice chunky robot without having to go to the 86 movie aesthetic to do it.
Yeah, and it's sort of it's G1 referential, but it's still very much its own thing. Like, you look at these things and you it's not like a movie design where you go, I don't really know who that's supposed to be. You look at one of his video game designs and you're like, oh, that's clearly Sideswipe, that's clearly Ironhide, but it is also very clearly not G1 Sideswipe, and it's not G1 Ironhide. It's its own thing. Yeah,
that was one of the things about that time that I think we all quite enjoyed, was sort of looking at new takes on these characters. And there's something that's come up a bit in various fan circles in the last few years, is that like we're very, very focused on matching the G1 cartoon design now, whether it's in the Masterpiece line or even in the standard sort of so-called chug releases. And so we've sort of lost this point of innovation where we would take of the core of a character and update them. And we're kind of getting to that in Legacy a little bit now, where we are sort of seeing some characters get updated, but the characters that are getting the updates are not the G1 characters. So it's like, someone coming in from Transformers Prime or from Armada, they're getting a sort of a more modern update. But again, they're still faithful to the source material. So there's sort of this lack of reimagining that's going on.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I'm not entirely sure. Don't really know where they would go from that, but seems to be in an all right space now, where at the very least it's sort of covering all their bases, where it's nothing. I think
everyone's pretty happy with where they are right now. Where we are right now is that we've had we've had 3 or 4 years of, actually more than that, sort of 4 or 5 years of sort of revisiting G1 characters. Now we're starting to branch out to that, and so they're going to have to continue sort of that sort of deeper dive into the back catalog instead of just going back and revisiting G1 again, which I think we are seeing that with Legacy. So that's just sort of their way forward.
Yeah, and it seems more like, but not just rather than just repeating G1 or just updating G1, it's going, okay, here's G1 characters, but the new stuff isn't reimagining G1, it's bringing new characters into that G1 framework and that G1 art style.
Yeah, the modern G1 art style kind of thing.
Yeah, so I guess it's that evergreen thing, right? And adding in new characters to that, I guess, familiar core mythos.
Let's move on. There's a couple more stories to look at. There's we just mentioned that we were going to get a look at the next leader Dinobot. There he is. There's Snarl. Bit of a stumpy Dino mode there. Not really sure what's going on with the Dino mode there, but the rest of him looks pretty impressive. His robot mode is nice. We did hear a few weeks ago that this had started to leak out of the factory. These are screen grabs from a video from Chefatron on YouTube, I think. Interestingly enough, we can see that he does come with his sword this time around. I assume that's his sword that he comes with. That's been something that's been added by a lot of upgrade kits and to other figures. Very, very, very happy with his robot mode design. Less happy with his Dinobot mode design, but he looks fine from the front in his dinosaur mode. So really, really not sure why he's so stumpy in his Dino mode. But I guess there's got to be compromises on particular things.
I mean, part of it is his head is really tiny.
Mm.
And I mean,
I think the head doesn't look so small compared to Sludge there, but it's just, I guess the rest of the sort of it's like there's about a third of his body missing.
Yeah, and I mean, Snarl's never had a large dino head anyway, but I think this is small even for him, which is kind of making the rest of it all look a bit chubby and comical in comparison to. So I don't know what's happening. I mean, part of me wants to volunteer that someone's gone, hey, Stegosauruses didn't have very large heads, but they haven't really bothered with realistic dinosaur proportions for the other studio series. So that would be an odd step to suddenly start taking. Yeah, it's almost like you kind of want to push his red half, if you will, there down and back a bit.
Yeah, you're right. It just, he seems almost like he's got a bit of a hunchback, doesn't he?
Yeah, it looks like a dog, like raising up its back to try and intimidate, or like a bearded dragon or something,
Yeah,
that's what he looks like. He's trying to puff up and intimidate you. Yeah,
so a few comparison shots here with Snarl versus some of the others. Getting onto the robot mode design, really like the robot mode. I think clearly the robot mode's the focus of the design effort here. Very nice, straightforward head sculpt. The gold parts of the figure are sort of where you expect them to be. And as Rob pointed out in the G1 cartoon, Snarl was the only Dinobot to carry a sword, so that is why he gets a sword in this version as well.
There you go.
Yeah. So we'll be expecting to see Snarl come out sometime in the next few months, I think, given that he's coming out of the factory now. So maybe sort of by about mid-year, we might be expecting to see him on store shelves. So we'll move on from Snarl, and I think this was the last story that I had for the night. It was just sort of to take a bit of a look at Legacy Evolution, Wave 3 and 4, and Studio Series case assortments for the rest of the year. This might tell us when we're getting Snarl. So Legacy Wave 3 seems to be scheduled for July, according to this post. So in July, we'll be seeing Beachcomber, Devcon, Axle Grease, and a repack of Tarantulas, which is a little bit unfortunate for those of us who already have him. But I guess it's a bit of a reprieve from buying all the new figures if you've already got a Tarantulas. We're seeing a black repaint of the Leo Prime, so it'll be Nemesis Leo. And if you've been waiting for those cone heads to come back around from the Earthrise Ramjet and Dirge 2-pack, your prayers are going to be answered, because sometime in July there's going to be a Dirge package refresh, and it looks likely to be the Earthrise Dirge coming back for another go at us. Whether or not they actually modify the deco or anything so that we can tell them apart, we will see. And as we can see, there's very excited. Mark is right there. Yes, give me that Dirge and Ramjet. There's a lot of people who are unable to get those Dirge and Ramjet figures when they were released a few years ago. So that's pretty cool. We're going to see an
Dinobot for this Volcanicus is Scar rather than Slash, it seems.
It is, yes. Scar, I believe. I think it's because Scar fits more with the intended Dino King repaint of the 16 Dinobot combiner. So they went with Scar because I think Scar's one of the comic characters, whereas Slash I think was just sort of an invention for Power of the Primes.
Yeah, Scar's their tragic backstory. He died like super early on, and they're like, "Oh, remember when we screwed up and Scar died? Oh yeah."
Yes. Mark says Scar is to facilitate the Dino Force repaint. So yeah. Other things coming out in Legacy Wave 3, we're expecting an Armada Megatron leader class figure, and we're going to see Blitzwing come back around for another go. So there's a couple of package refreshes in Legacy Wave 3. One or two of them are going to be very desirable. See how that goes. And we are going to see Scar, Swoop, and Grimlock apparently. It's going to be 3 Dinobots in Wave 3 because it makes up for there only being 1 in Wave 2. Wave 4, we're going to see Snarl, Sludge, and Slug come back, and so there's going to be lots of Dinobot combiners hanging around this year. And Wave 4, we're expecting to see Shadow Striker, Strong Arm.
I
say Strong Arm with a nice little inflection on the end to get Daria's attention. Bombshell.
Well, I was actually oyang at Shadow Striker first too, because I really liked, assuming it's the Cyberverse Shadow Striker, which seems like a safe guess, as the other one was very obscure, and Shadow Striker just was on TV last year. So I really liked her. So her having a decent proper toy, I'm right behind. And yes, Strong Arm as well. I mean, this Strong Arm is one of the few Robots in Disguise 2015 characters whose toy is actually a half-decent representation of the character, because they got very strange with who didn't get a toy and in what variety during that line. So Strong Arm's, I think, warrior class toy, they called it, is pretty good, but I'm definitely going to be holding out to see what they can do with it with this legacy era engineering and the aesthetic as they go to refine her or not, and see how she turns out.
Yeah, I think I think there'll be a lot of people who are actually looking forward to getting Strong Arm, because we haven't seen a figure of Strong Arm since RID.
Yeah, and like I said, there are a lot of RID characters really underserved by the toy line, because they just ended up with like one-step changes or tiny titans, even if they were major characters, or they got the ones whose forms were entirely given over to combination tricks, but not much to look at in themselves. Strong Arm got lucky. She did pretty well, but again, this one I'll be holding out to see what modern thinking does for her.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to seeing it as well. I think there's been some really nice updates to beloved characters in the line, so I do trust the design team with this. Other deluxe figures coming out in Wave 4. We're going to see our next Insecticons. It's been a while between drinks for Insecticons. We've got Kickback came out last year, so the next Insecticon is going to be the end of this year, and Detritus as well, which we are expecting Detritus to be an Earth Mode Hound repaint. We haven't seen the Earth Mode Hound announced yet, but we are expecting him to go into the Buzzworthy line as well. Otherwise, two new Voyagers, Junkion and Bludgeon. Bludgeon is expected to be a repaint or a retool of Tarn. And there you go. There's your Leader Prime Dreadwing coming in Wave 4, sort of towards the end of the year. Given that they've managed to get Wave 2 happening in February, I think we've got a good chance of actually getting to Wave 4 this year, as opposed to last year, where Wave 4 of Legacy sort of slipped into Legacy Evolution Wave 1. So, yeah. We're also taking a quick look at Studio Series Wave 3 and 4. Wave 3, we're going to get a couple of new core characters, Bumblebee and 86 Ironhide. Deluxes, we're going to get War for Cybertron Cliffjumper, so that might be the first War for Cybertron figure to come out, plus an 86 Brawn and TF7 Bumblebee, which is probably the second run for that one, if that's the case, because that'll be Rise of the Beast Bumblebee, who is already out. Voyager-wise, we'll see Rhinox from Rise of the Beasts and War for Cybertron Megatron as well. So really sort of switching gears away from sort of the Bay movies into sort of Bumblebee and Rise of the Beasts, and then sort of mixing in a bit of 86 and War for Cybertron. We're seeing 86 Frenzy, TF7 Delta 2 and Hydra, which I think might be code names, the things that we haven't seen revealed for Rise of the Beasts yet. Deluxe-wise for Wave 4, we're expecting to see Nightbird, Mirage, and another War for Cybertron Bumblebee in Deluxe. 86 Ratchet finally making good on that Ironhide mold, getting a repaint, and War for Cybertron Optimus coming in Wave 4 of Studio Series this year. And 86 Snarl looks like he's going to get a repack, is it? Or is he not coming out until then? I think... looks like 86 Snarl might not be coming out until the end of the year. Maybe he's coming in Wave 2, and then maybe he'll get a repack in Wave 4. So see how we go.
I'll just have the PR note.
Sorry, the PR.
Yeah, the one there. The repackaged ones have largely had PR next to the name, and the Snarl there does not.
So PR generally means a package refresh. So it's where a figure was released in a previous line and they've updated the packaging.
This should be the same line, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so this will be the same line. It might just be a repack. It'll be a repack, so an RP, not a package refresh, which is PR. It's all the terminology, Daria. You've got to get it right, you know. It's very confusing. It's very confusing because people will often say repack for a PR, but yeah, it is.
I'd also
refresh.
I'd also overlooked that. Yeah, it didn't apply because all the Studio Series 86s were going to be Studio Series 86s.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think I explicitly called out the Laser Optimus Prime package refresh coming in Wave 4 of Legacy Evolution as well. So that'll be sort of switching his packaging from Legacy to Evolution. So there might be new box art for it rather than just a logo.
It seems to be just what they do with the leaders these days, that it gets another go a wave or 3 later.
Yeah, true.
Because I was just thinking about Blitzwing and how he didn't exactly become scarce, nor did he wow people in their seats. But there he is getting a package refresh, another go round.
You know what? Blitzwing didn't wow people, but also I think if you were to look around for him now, you might find a few people trying to find him rather than necessarily going, oh well, he's been and gone and too bad.
I think was the sort of thing where a lot of people complained about it. Like I certainly said on this podcast, I didn't think it looked very good, but everyone sort of went out and bought it anyway. So I think, the people that complained about it were quite vocal because it was very easy things to point to But at the end of the day, there was still a strong desire for a decent Blitzwing figure.
I think there's definitely a strong desire to have a set.
Yeah, people just went for it.
Yeah, I think even though they'll complain, they'll still buy it, which is how unlike Transformers fans. But yeah. So anyway, that's a bit of a look at what's coming up as we head into the tail end of this year, which we're definitely not there yet. There's still a couple of waves to go. That is it for the news. We've done and dusted the news there. I wanted to talk about new acquisitions quickly. Now I have Max's acquisitions and I've got my own, which I haven't put in the run sheet. Daria, do you have any new figures to show us?
I do. We have Shattered Glass Soundwave here.
Oh, very nice.
How much did that set you back? I'm curious.
Oh, I'm trying to remember because not only did I use that, hey, you've just joined JB Perks discount, but I got this when there were 20% off all the action figures at JB. So
yeah, so it did bring it down to sort of if you were smart. So Shatterglass Soundwave seems to have come out at about 110, 115, 120, in some cases $130. But if you were smart, bought them on some sales. I know the Gamesmen had him on sale in their eBay store for about 85 at one point, and he seems to have settled to about 115 in stores. And if you get him at 20% off, that's much better.
I don't remember the exact number, but I do remember with those sales on and things that I bought this chap, and I bought a Blu-ray, a fairly recent Blu-ray, not just from the Fiverr bin.
Not just any old Blu-ray.
Yeah, well, it was the recent Doctor Who one, which was going at like still 30 something, and it was full price. And I remember thinking, between the discounts and the perks, I pay less for this guy and the Doctor Who Blu-ray than I would have for just this guy if I'd gone when he was fresh and new. So I don't know
this is a very long-winded way of saying I don't remember.
Yeah, but I'm saying I know it was significantly cheaper than the first offered 110 price, because him plus Blu-ray was significantly less than 110.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
So yeah, and I am very happy with him. And I mean, of course, the other thing is he comes with friends. So we have our little social media influencer, Ravage. Here's the one waving there, and I hadn't seen any of the cassette molds in this go round. He ends up with tiny head syndrome, but he's still pretty cute. And living in Soundwave's chest at the moment is Laserbeak. You've got to be careful to put him in the right way around, or he gets stuck. Like many recent incarnations of the animal cassettes, their weapons are now built in. And this, of course, is one way to get a hold of the Netflix Soundwave mold, because he's based on that rather than the weird chair spaceship thing from the other War for Cybertron line, although he has a new head with a headband because he is a rockin' cool dude. So yeah, I haven't got any cases of yellowing so far, but we all know that at the moment yellowing is a very random thing, even between figures supposedly made at the same time. So who knows? Yeah.
Look, the yellowing is unfortunate. It's something that we hope that they will actually solve. There was a lot of discussion about it about sort of 6 to 8 months ago. Some of the designers said that they've investigated it and they found the cause of it, but they don't seem to have fixed it. But at least they know what causes it. So
apparently there was some supply chain breakdown when everything went kits up for the pandemic. I don't know enough about plastic science to know exactly what they couldn't do or couldn't get, but apparently that's when it really started to become a noticeable problem again. But I've also read how entirely random it is, that some people are getting things already yellowed in the packet or yellowing right away. Some people have got the one next to it on the shelf and it's still white as a driven snow. So that's puzzling, if kind of interesting, if you're into that sort of thing.
There was an interesting one with this, is that one of the major complaints about yellowing in the last couple of years has been Legacy Motormaster, but short of the initial complaints about that when it was first released and people started to create threads on TFW trying to track serial numbers and which ones were known good and which ones were bad, and it all died down very quickly after the initial release of that figure. So hopefully it was really just a sort of a bad batch at the beginning of it.
Yeah, the one I've seen, the one I've heard most about is Shattered Starscream.
Yeah, I had someone pick up my Shattered Glass Starscream, look at me and go, "Ooh, he's yellow," but unfortunately, them's the breaks. Mark has a different problem. Mark's Blitzwing sword has gone droopy in the Queensland heat.
Ew.
Yeah, that's.
I have the same problem like here in Adelaide because it's a lot of a drier heat as well. So like all my Marvel Legends and things, because it's a gummier plastic than the Transformers, they literally just melt and collapse on the shelf. It's just not fun.
Yeah.
So ideally, they could not use that, refrain from using that rubbery plastic on Transformers. That would be lovely, because I'd like to not have the bulk of my collection melt over summer.
I think it's an admirable goal. Max, do you want to show off some new acquisitions? What have you added to your collection lately?
So, does anyone? I'll start with the official thing, I suppose. Am I the only one with Menasor?
You might be. I saw in your acquisition list that you've got Breakdown. I've also got Breakdown. I picked them up in the UK at Christmas time. My problem is that I actually have forgotten to get Dead End. So I've got the new hard to find one. Now I can't find the other hard to find one. So I'm gonna have to find myself a Dead End at some point. But I'm not too worried about it. I think Dead End's going to end up being fairly simple to acquire.
Yeah, he's not coming out anywhere at the moment, but he's just floating around at various retail stores.
Yeah, Dead End's the one I want because he's Dead End. I'm not doing the Stunticons, but I like him as a character. Yeah.
You'll buy the sole one that's left in Australia, and then Jason won't be able to complete his Menasor.
Okay, so you've got yourself a Menasor. How is he all assembled up and combined? He certainly looks a lot less fragile than the Combiner Wars one.
Yeah, like it shouldn't be any controversy
sure.
to say like it is the best combiner in Transformers, like Transformers toy like official combiner period. Like it just isn't, just nothing compares. It's fucking good. It's like it has issues which I'll get into, but on the whole, it's really just it functions as a figure and doesn't feel like a combiner. Like, we're at a stage where everything is a bit more solidly built. So, maybe a bit like that. So he's not as solidly put together as, say, a mainline Voyager or something, right? But a mainline Voyager from 5 or 10 years ago would be about as solid as this, where occasionally things come untabbed and occasionally you get a bit of a loose joint, right? So he's at about that standard where he is slightly less solid than a mainline figure, which is he's really saying something, because mainline figures right now are dead solid, and this thing, the only issues I've sometimes come across are sometimes bits on the arms come untabbed, and the thighs sometimes are a bit loose. Otherwise, it is like you put it together and it becomes a functional action figure, and it doesn't feel like 5 transforming robots bolted together. It just feels like a rock solid brick. It's
It looks
fantastic.
way more solid than say the Combiner Wars one, right? You always had to be a little bit careful holding that up and moving it around and posing it. Whereas like you've held that up, you've shaken it around and stuff. Like he hasn't moved.
The joints aren't moving if I do that. Like
they're
just not. Like if you just listen to that, that is rock solid.
That's gorgeous. Just
Goodness. It is. It's a well put together thing. All the connections. So solid. I was a bit worried that it wouldn't look too good, like the colors would feel a bit bland. But in person, it really pops. It just has a cleanness to it with just enough color popping through. I will say that I kind of, often look at the back of the figure and I go, man, that kind of looks like the back of a nicer looking figure because you have Breakdown and Dead and Wild Rider here. There just is that little bit more color separation and a bit more variation in the curvature, where it doesn't look nice from the back because inherently it's the back of a figure, but it looks like the back of a nicer looking figure, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I'm somewhat disappointed that they didn't include an extra set of swivels to let us put the cars on the front and keep functional knees. I don't think that would have required much extra engineering. And it is a bit disappointing because these shins are kind of just bland. It's just a grey void. And you can see the sides of the cars there, but
it's like we understand why. It's just it would have been nice to have the option, right?
Yeah, they're going for something slavishly G1, but I felt there's enough wiggle room there that, when Menasor has been depicted in modern media, like the comics, for example, and all manner of fan art and everything, and the Combiner Wars toy, the cars have been on the front, and, the front of a vehicle is generally visible on just about every other Combiner, so it just feels a bit out of place, particularly when you have Drag Strip and Dead End so prominently visible, and you just have these guys hanging out at the back. It's not bad. Like, this is what G1 Menasor looks like. It's not exactly, I can't call it a bad thing. It's just that this figure does so much right and so much extra and goes above and beyond every other combiner we've had previously. I kind of feel like, hold on, couldn't you have found some way to do this as well? Just that little touch on
especially
top.
at the price that you pay for the Commander class figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other issues are just the sword is a little bit small. It's a smallish sword. There's nothing much more to say about that. That's a very, very minor issue. And then we have just the block. So a big chunk of the trailer forms a turret for the base mode. And then it doesn't factor into the combined mode whatsoever.
I had no idea.
It just sits off to the side. Ostensibly,
oh, right. I didn't know this at all. I thought the whole thing was in there. Right. Okay.
No, what the instructions tell you to do is they tell you to form the turret like that and then have Menasor use the turret. But I don't know if you can tell there, but that's a very small turret for a very big Menasor. It just doesn't look right. So
yeah, it does look like he'll be doing something else, but yeah,
there is just
maybe something you would expect to see on Robot Chicken
whatsoever. So at the very least, what I've done is I've gone, okay, here's the individual weapons of the 4 Stunticons up top, and then here's the turret front bit rearranged, and then you can sort of have it. Let's give it 2 seconds. The connection's kind of tight, but you can have him hold this, and the plastic flexes a little bit, but it kind of works as just a big shoulder-mounted cannon.
I've seen a picture like that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Once you've got the turret on the front there and the individual Stunticon weapons on the top, it kind of works like that. It still does feel a bit cheap, and it's kind of just does feel like an extra pile of plastic.
You can also just stick it in a box in the cupboard.
Yeah, but that feels like cheating.
Nah.
But yeah, I probably will run up sticking it in a box in the cupboard because it does flex the plastic a little bit having it mounted there. But
yeah, fair enough,
it is nice, but the option does exist. So yeah, there's and now it's falling apart on me because it weighs a lot. Like the turret bit is. The Menasor himself is rock solid. That turret stuff doesn't really hold together all too well. But yeah, so in summary, there's a couple of minor issues, and I want to stress they are minor. Like it's nothing really deal breaking. Because beyond that, it's far and away the best combiner to date. It just is. I mean, it's just a rock solid, good looking Menasor. The 5 excellent individual figures. Like when this thing was first revealed, I was, kind of nervous about it. Not nervous, but kind of like, what form is this going to take? Right? How are they going to approach this differently to Combiner Wars? And it just feels like a unified package, like a defined thing that they've set out at the start and gone, this is what we're going to do. And they've done it and it works. I'm just hoping that we get a completed G2 set, because currently I've got a boxed shadow strip waiting for the rest of the team. At which point I'll probably sell this.
It's an interesting thought. We've just gone through what we're expecting to see in Legacy Evolution. It does not appear that we're sort of expecting to see repacks of the Stunticons. However, there does exist other capsule sets. So the 2023 version of the Velocitron set may hold some Stunticon repaints. We'll see how we go. That's
another one where they like to just surprise us, the Velocitron line. So who knows?
It is actually the most surprising thing out of the most surprising Velocitron news is the fact that the toy version Hot Rod, the toy color Hot Rod repaint that we saw a leak. I don't know if it was officially announced or not, but there's apparently no plans to release that. It's sad out of stock Walmart page lives on forever. So like all of the images that we saw for that did come from an official Walmart listing. It was actually announced and sent out to retailers. But yeah, no, apparently there's no plans to release it. So
the Velocitron Hot Rod?
That's right.
Wait, no plans to release it anywhere. Sorry.
Nope. No plans to release it.
I thought it was just Australia. Fuck. All right.
Apparently no plans to release them at all.
Okay. That's wild.
So, to be perfectly honest, I wasn't really looking forward to it because I didn't really feel like I needed another 86 Hot Rod. I would have much preferred an IDW style Hot Rod if they were going to do it. But
I was disappointed by the reveal that it was just slightly different colors. But what can you do?
Yeah, that's right. All right. Very quickly, I'm going to go through the things that I've acquired and or opened in the last couple of weeks. Number one is probably a fairly desirable figure, I think, given what we were just talking about, which is the Velocitron Galaxy Shuttle. I did actually bring him back from the UK with me. I purchased him from Hasbro Pulse when I was visiting the UK at Christmas. Luckily I did, because apparently he doesn't seem to be coming out here or in Asia. They actually cancelled the release of him in Asia. So don't know what's going on, but the Velocitron line does seem to be dropping like flies. I have not handled the Astro Train mold before. I actually really like this figure. It does sort of make me want to go out and get a Siege or an Earthrise Astro Train, and then maybe also add Blitzwing into the set as well, because he's surprisingly solid and really, really nice. Very, very happy with him. Couple of other figures I got my hands on with the good old 20% off sale at Myer. As I mentioned earlier, there's the Legacy Needlenose. I can't figure out what I've done, but I can't actually get his plain body to tab together properly. Someone mentioned there's some angles that need to be fixed on where the legs go or something, and yeah, I don't know. I'll work it out. I kind of have Needlenose more for his robot mode than his jet mode, though. Anyway, as most people probably are into him for that. It's a nice looking robot mode. Jet mode's quite nice. I quite appreciate the way that things sort of end up on a bit of an angle underneath, like instead of everyone sort of being 90 degree folds as we sort of we're used to with a lot of robots and as arms and pieces compress. And to go with Needlenose, and I haven't opened it up yet as well, is our first Legacy Junkion Scraphook. So I will probably open up Scraphook over the course of the weekend and take a look at him and take some photographs. So that is those are my acquisitions at the moment. That's probably going to be some of the only acquisitions that I have for a little while, actually, because I'm going to be moving house soon. So we'll see how things go. That is about it. We have run a little bit long, but we do like to give Brad something to do when he edits the podcast. So Brad will kill me when he hears this comment. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, I have doing this most weeks anyway.
Yes, we do. We do. Facebook user says, any thoughts on the Rise of the Beast figures? Don't have them. So no actual thoughts on them at the moment.
Empty.
Yeah, not sure. I mean, I think we talked about Cheetor last episode. I think I quite like Cheetor, the way that he looks, but also I can see why some people don't. I haven't seen enough of them really sort of in hand. I'll probably actually get to see Cheetor over the weekend, and maybe Air Razor. I'll see. I'm seeing some friends tomorrow night. So yeah, maybe I'll have some thoughts on them later. But I think if you ask in the Facebook group, I'm sure everyone will give you some of their thoughts and feelings and feel opinions about them. That is about it. I think we should end the show. Anyone got anything to add before we do?
Nope.
Stony silence. That is it, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you're watching on with the live record, wait a second.
I was just double checking, just because I wasn't on the last show. Have we told the listener people there's another batch of Earthspark in March?
Yes, it did come up. The preview,
cool.
The preview was released just in time for the last episode. So yes, in fact, is it March 3rd or March 8th? I think there's next batch of episodes. Hopefully 10, but I'm not quite sure if they're going to release 10. So I think it's a 26 episode season. They're not going to drop 16 episodes. So I think they'll either drop 10 and the last drop will be 6, or they might just drop 8 and 8. We'll see. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So yes, New Earthspark probably coming to you maybe just around the time of the next episode of the podcast, if we stick to a sort of a 2-week cadence. We'll see how we go. That is it, everyone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching the live record. We've seen a few people watching and commenting. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. A reminder that you can watch us and you can see what we're talking about via our YouTube channel. That is youtube.com. You can search for Transformers Collectors Club Australia. Find out more about these stories with links to them all and more in the show notes. We are a production of Transformers Collectors Club Australia, run by volunteers donating their time, effort, energy, money, and Friday nights to make collecting in Australia and listening to podcasts better for everyone. You can find out more about the club at transformerscca.com, or you can also join our Facebook groups and hang out with the community. We are Australia's largest Transformers collecting community. There's over 5,000 people in our Facebook group, so come on in. The water's nice and warm. That is it from us. Thank you very much, everyone, and we will be back with more Transformers news. I'm going to say soon. Maybe it'll be a couple of weeks. Maybe it'll be next week. Depends if some massive news drops. We'll see how we go. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.
Stay lazy.